Podcast time, baby. Welcome back to the Mik Tek Studios podcast. Happy 2018, everybody. This is Michael Midnight, and today, as you've no doubt have guessed from the title card, we are going to be talking about emails. Email addresses, selecting a name, what to do to avoid spam and blacklisting, what to ask your content or service provider or host, and also, last but definitely not least, and my personal favorite, speeding up the check-in process of your emails to avoid taking hours, which you can now do in minutes. All right, so when you're working on creating or selecting your general inbox email address, you want to avoid a couple of generic terms. You'll see why in a second. So if you're using the infamous info@yourwebsite.com or office at or contact, webmaster, email, mail, I've actually seen those, you're probably going to be solicited to a lot more frequent spam than you're used to, or that you really want to. The reason why is spammers can actually guess at these with uncanny accuracy because, surprise, surprise, like password 123 is the most used password, info@ is the most used email address. So once they can get a website or domain validation, we're just throwing that sucker on there and chances are it's going to end up in an inbox somewhere. And also bad form on me, which I've used info@ in the past myself. Surprise, surprise, some services or products actually don't let you register an info@ email address to log in or subscribe to their service. I believe Facebook's actually one of them. When I went to sign up for the Mik Tek Studios Facebook page, it wouldn't let me do it. On top of that, sending out an email from info@ or receiving is going to be more frequently targeted as spam than other more customized or personalized options. If you're blasting out these email campaigns or newsletters, they're ending up in people's spam folders automatically, and vice versa. So that's not necessarily helpful for anybody, and it's not getting into the intended prospect, lead, or client's hands. So that's bad. So these are names that you want to avoid. Like, for example, I went from info@miktekstudios.com to go@miktek.tv. Much shorter, much sweeter, and definitely much more memorable. So that ends up being a win-win for me and also for people remembering it, and I don't necessarily have to send them a business card or an email. Go@miktek.tv is relatively short and simple to remember. So if you are managing your own host or email domain, a couple things you want to check with your service or hosting provider about is gray listing. Now, what I have found in the past is if this is selected or turned on, chances are you're going to get a lot of your emails that you should or actually want to get filtered from you. Turn that off. If there's any sort of filtering between the server that's receiving your email and your client computer or device, turn it off. This might have been great back in the 90s, but the algorithms for Yahoo and Gmail are way, way, way more accurate than any standard server parameters that you're going to see today. Here's why you want to turn this off. So in the world of filtering, you have whitelisting, gray listing, and blacklisting. Most of us have heard blacklisting. So if you've heard whitelisting, that's the exact opposite of blacklisting. That's a good thing. We want that to go through no matter what. That's usually generally accepted practice if you're logging into a cPanel or a domain with your IP or a set and series of IPs that are on location that you're okay with. You don't ever want there to be a question or problem or flagging. Gray listing, however, is the server's attempt to moderate what the incoming flow of whatever it may be, whether it be an IP address, whether it be emails coming in. And what it does selectively is not always accurate. And not only that, you end up losing a lot of the emails in the process that actually should be coming to you and going out and vice versa. So you want to make sure that that is set up and modified, because if not, you're losing a lot of unnecessary emails through that process. A very important point to also keep in mind is your IP, which a lot of these lower cost, efficiently priced hosting platforms are on shared IP addresses. So what that means is everything lives on the same server, you just have the opportunity of using it as a different time. So think of it like a timeshare. Well, the problem is if somebody trashes your timeshare, you're going to get blamed for it. It's the same thing here. So if somebody was, for example, to trash your timeshare, there's going to be ramifications, and there's probably going to be problems for everybody involved, actually. But it's the same thing with a blacklisted IP. It ends up being if somebody was also on that platform and they were hosting Trojans or viruses or known to be something that was a black hat tactic or blacklisted capable, you're also going to be tagged in with that same title. It'll definitely trash your domain authority and your SEO rank for sure with your emails, and it's going to more than likely select your emails as spam, which is no good. So you want to make sure that you've done your due diligence and research the IP address that shows up for your hosting provider. And if it does show up on a blacklist IP, contact them immediately and see what you can do to get off of that or switch services altogether. It is not worth the drop in traffic at all. So we got selecting an email address. We got checking in with our hosting and service provider about these options. We've talked about blacklisting. Last but not least is actually speeding up the check-in process. So these are based on experiences that I've actually had in the past couple of years. I've noticed that not only did I personally was on a blacklisted IP, which made it much more difficult for me to see the level of traffic that I was accustomed to. I also noticed that email addresses that I was setting up due to that were much less trustworthy in the eyes of Google and other webmaster tools, and therefore took much longer to fetch for my emails. So sometimes it would take hours for it to fetch 1 or 2 emails that were important that I was going back and forth with a client or a customer. So I did some research, and I saw that there were different scripts that you could use to automatically refresh your inbox. You know, if you're on a computer, you can have it automatically constantly refreshing every 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, and you'd have to pay for these scripts, or they're, donation aware and things like that. But it didn't help if you had a phone and you weren't able to constantly keep opening up and refreshing it. Also, this process would involve you constantly having a computer on 24/7, refreshing your emails. That doesn't work either. So my first attempt, I started creating events and having email notifications within Gmail, because most of the emails that I do receive actually do funnel back into a couple of inboxes that I have on Gmail. Gmail's great by itself, but you do want to, as a general rule of thumb, separate your personal email address from your business email address, because again, it's just like giving out your personal number and a work number. A work number doesn't matter if you give it out, you can always change that, but at the end of the day, your personal number, you kind of want to separate that. Keeps down the spam phone calls, keeps down the spam email. So what I did was I systematically set up for every 25 minutes or so, every 15 or 20 minutes or so during the day, I scheduled a notification, an email notification to pop up in my email account, figuring this would solve the problem. And it did for a very short time. See, Google's algorithm learns and it adapts based on what it is that you're doing or not doing, which is good and bad. In this case, it was bad. It did see what I was doing because I created a filter and I deleted all these notifications coming in. Therefore, it would constantly keep sending a notification to this new email that I wanted to have it trigger and retrieve emails, fetch emails from much more quickly, but it didn't last for very long. But it did speed up the process of checking it throughout the day. So that was successful. We wanted to keep this going. We didn't want it to just be a couple of days and then go back to checking it every hour. So a neat trick that you can actually do, and again, this is if you do use Gmail, I believe there's probably similar methods in MSN and Yahoo and probably Rocket Mail if anybody still uses that, but check on your local service email provider and see what the possibilities are. One general problem that I was having was I would get emails on a daily basis and sometimes 2 or 3 times a day from companies that I would never order from. Angie's List would send you 2 or 3 emails a day. Advanced Auto Parts or AutoZone would send you 2 or 3 emails a day and then maybe 2 circulars a week. These were a lot. I realized I can use these newsletter signups to my advantage. So what I did was I went through to each website that I could think of that was sending me too many emails, and I signed up for it with my new email address. Once those emails came in, I put a filter on them to have them automatically read and trashed. Therefore, I would never see the process being checked in, but lo and behold, it has sped up the process for me to get these emails that would normally take hours, would take minutes. They're actually just as fast now, if not faster, than native Gmail addresses, which is insane. I never thought I'd be able to see that, but here we are. And I know if I'm having these problems, chances are other people are as well, no matter what size of company that you are. So hopefully my little experiment proves to be successful and is also the most cost-effective option that you're going to see out there. And that about wraps everything up today for emails and the discussion that I wanted to have. If you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email. This podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, or your podcast app of choice. Thanks for checking out this episode. This is Michael Midnight signing off. Thanks again, guys. Bye now.